with Tarkov, and my love for RPG and questing solo games made this something I very much wanted to enjoy. So as we hopped on into the world, I almost found myself looking as though I was in a Bethesda game. Direction was clear on where to go, the game was polished, looked great. Even found myself with a PDA, which was really reminiscent of a Pip-Boy from Fallout. Map, journal, notes section, space for upgrades, and even tutorial. If you've seen any of my content before, you'll know I'm an experienced Tarkov player, about 1,500 hours in there. I also like to play a lot of horror games. I heard this game had a lot of horror elements, so a mixture of horror, survival horror, and Tarkov, I knew I was in. I found the controls to be a little bumbly at first. Took me a moment to get used to, as I showcase here. Game navigation did seem clear. Made it real easy to find where I was going with the compass on the top of the map. So with game direction not being a problem, I was looking at the sound. Everything sounded good. Directional was nice. Even when I got into gunfights later on, I had no problem distinguishing where the voices and or the shots were coming from. The gunplay does seem a little janky, but it's not like bad janky, it's like good janky in an old school way. So should you play Stalker 2? I'm going to go through my experience with the first few hours of the game, and we'll take a look at what makes the game good, what makes the game bad, and you can decide whether or not you should play. Now, I didn't want to spoil anything for anyone. I did hear that the story was really slow to get going, but I found it really engaging at first, and I had no problem diving right in. Even when the game is cycled on nighttime, it's dark, and it's very hard to see, but it's as though it's meant to be played like that, so I didn't want to mess with the game order settings. It was still pretty easy to make out buildings and landmarks in the distance, and exploration is kind of my thing. I leave no stone left unturned. I explore pretty much every nook and cranny of all the games I play. It's just one aspect that adds a lot more value to me. The world does seem to be random, whereas I died a few times. It seemed as though some enemies weren't in the same spot when I spawned back in. So, if that's the case, I think that's an awesome thing as well. With the Russian landscape, it was very reminiscent of my time in Tarkov. Immediately when I walked in the first house, I think I tried to loot a jacket, but wasn't able to. I was met with some clutter and a dead body, which seems as you can loot all the dead bodies, and usually there's a weapon or two next to them. I will add that I can see how the darkness can be a problem for some players, because it's not just dark. It's like extremely dark, and the flashlight doesn't go very far. It's just a couple feet in front of you. Then there was moments like these that made the suspense amp up. It made me really excited for what I was about to find. Now, of course, in a post-apocalyptic shooter, you're gonna have radiation, and we are armed with something that'll help us find it. It also helps you detect something called artifacts, and in this, it seems very rewarding when you do find one. Again, the world was almost random. I didn't know what to think. Things seem really random, and they were actually really fun to see. And I know my heart rate got jumping a couple times. One thing I was extremely happy to see is that your dialogue choices actually had real consequences in some situations. Like this one, where I was just role playing that I was a tough guy asshole, and I just wanted to tell him to shove it.
Have a nice talk with him, would you? Calm him down. Make him tell you where his stash is. Got it? Cause I'm about to have a fucking meltdown.
You're not the only one Valak Lumix owes money to. I've come to collect his debt.
Why should I give a damn, buddy? First you take care of my problem, then you can take care of yours. Get it?
And if I don't, what you gonna do about that?
Why don't you try it? Come on, humor me. I just love it when people try to mess with me. Right, fellas?
Yeah, he does.
See, buddy? You get what I mean?
I can decide it for myself.
Whatever. As you wish. No bloody problem. See you around. Shoot at his feet! I want to kill him with my own hand.
And boy, the world does have plenty of surprises. There was only one instance where I found myself in a situation where I couldn't back up because I was in a situation where the game had saved and there was no way to back out of that when I was dying. I knew it was either use all my meds and get through it, or we were gonna have to find a different save point. I will say, I find the exploration fun and sometimes rewarding, but a lot of times the loot is very generic and repetitive. I did find myself stopping and actually taking a look at the gorgeous things the game had to offer at some times. And there's a lot of things here that I just don't want to ruin for you. Again, with some quest objectives, it was nice to be met with multiple options in turning in.
Its former owner must have built it himself. You can't get stuff like this anywhere else in the zone.
It was random scenes like the one you're about to see that made me really know that I was going to keep myself engaged with this game for a long time. One of the only real issues I had with the game is that stealth was almost not an option. Actually, it was impossible for me so far. Whether in the dark, crouching, staying in the shadows, it seemed no matter what, the AI would find me and just pinpoint accuracy dome me if they could. Silencers weren't an option. There was just no way to get around the AI finding me. Overall, I found this game extremely engaging. I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm only 3.5 hours in. So there's so many different guns so far. You can fully mod them. There's different things for you to purchase and sell for your weapons. Different gear. Even though the gunplay isn't the greatest, and like I said, it is janky, it's very reasonable and just feels like an old school shooter to me, where it doesn't really matter with what the world gives you and the amount of things you can see or do. There's just absolutely no reason to hate on this. I haven't run into many bugs. The game is fully playable. Sadly, games like this are review bombed by people who play the game on day one, and all they do is bitch and complain. And I gotta say, if you're out here playing games day one just to complain about the bugs and everything, these things are usually patched within the first week. You need to stop playing games on day one. You are just spewing bullshit. Saying these games are terrible when they're actually great. Games like this are a gem, and I look so much forward for it to show me what it has to offer. Follow Horror Nation on Twitch. I'll be playing this game weekdays for a while.